NBC News chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson. Hallie is outside the White House. Hallie, good morning. I'm just reading a new statement from the Trump campaign that alleges wrongdoing in the state of Pennsylvania. We'll say for the umpteenth time this morning, there's absolutely no evidence of that, as has been repeated again this morning by the senator in that state, Republican Pat Toomey, was on the Today Show saying he's seen no evidence of it. And if the White House or the Trump campaign has such evidence, they ought to bring it forth immediately. What are you hearing from the White House right now?
Pretty much that statement, frankly, Willie. We've been asking ever since we made the call that Biden was pulling into the lead in Pennsylvania. And obviously, NBC News has not called the race in Pennsylvania or the presidential election yet. And it's been really radio silence, frankly. And this statement from the campaign is the first we're hearing. They are insisting, Willie, and I'm quoting here, that this election is not over. Now, why are they saying that? Because, again, their path to victory would have to run through Pennsylvania. That's game over for Joe Biden if, in fact, he does end up maintaining this lead and the race gets called for him there. The reason that they say this election is not over, according to the general counsel of the Trump campaign, Matt Morgan, who along with Justin Clark has been working on the legal strategy, is because they are making these claims of, quote, irregularities, they say, in states like Pennsylvania, alleging fraud in other states as well, Nevada, Arizona, et cetera. Again, Willie, that is not borne out by the facts. And I just think we can't be clear enough about that at this point. Listen, there is no evidence of widespread fraud. There is no reports of it. There are no reports of systemic issues with the election. The election is proceeding and has proceeded as expected, with ballots being counted legitimately. You mentioned, of course, the comments from Senator Pat Toomey, which I also found very interesting this morning. But this is how the Trump campaign is trying to, I think, grab onto some sort of semblance of hope. I imagine in part to assuage the president. It is our reporting that he was not in a great mood when the numbers started coming in yesterday and they were not looking favorable towards him. I also have to say that in Pennsylvania, it's particularly interesting, and I think you guys talked about this a couple of minutes ago, that the late arriving ballots are not being counted, right? Ballots that arrived were sent in prior to Election Day, but that arrived after are not being included in this pool of ballots. That's significant. I spoke with somebody who was involved in the legal strategy overnight who indicated that they felt like they had a shot at getting this case in front of the Supreme Court, having the justices take up that case that is in front of the court currently in Pennsylvania, if in fact those late arriving ballots were, outcome determinative, were able to determine the outcome. It looks like, based on the numbers that we're seeing at least right now, that may or may not be the case. And so that could be a blow to the campaign's legal strategy moving forward here. That said, don't expect, listen, I don't have to tell you this, I would not expect any kind of conciliatory or concessionary speech from President Trump in fact, it gets to the point where Pennsylvania ends up called. I talked to somebody overnight, a source close to the president, who said we are going to fight to every last second. The president is in a fighting mood. He is unwilling to concede any of this at this point. Even conceding that Biden is taking the lead is a bridge too far for the Trump campaign at this point. So we're going to continue to work out, report out some elements here, Willie. But boy, this is fast-moving developments this morning here in this presidential race.
Yeah, Hallie, as you talk about a legal strategy, it's unclear what that is exactly. In some states, it's stop the vote. In other states, like Arizona, for example, it's continue the vote, count faster. But it seems to be a collection of assertions. In other words, in a lawsuit, you have to provide evidence. And when they're pressed for evidence, as Jacob Soboroff pressed Rick Grinnell in the state of Nevada yesterday, he had nothing to say except to escape into a van. So what exactly is the legal strategy? What is the evidence that they're putting forward behind any of these claims?
Let's be clear, Willie. It's not just reporters and members of the media who are saying there's not evidence for these claims and asking that question and finding this. It's the courts.
Yeah.
Right. It's actual judges who are tossing out these lawsuits in states like Georgia and Michigan because they say there's just not evidence for it. I have to tell you that based on the reporting that I've been doing, there is some consternation with those, I think, in circles here in Washington, Republican circles, about the strategy moving forward to put people like, Corey Lewandowski, Pam Bondi, Rudy Giuliani, Dave Bossie and others sort of in charge, is being the face of that legal effort. Some concern around that with questions about, who's the guy who's going to be the Ted Olson of this move, right? Sort of marshaling and leading the legal effort moving forward. And at this point, I think that is still coalescing. And I think you're seeing that by the way that, the Trump campaign is not getting the legal victories. They're not racking up the legal victories that they had hoped to rack up. But the stance this morning, very clearly defiant, Willie, even in the face of some of these numbers that are coming in.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us. To watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.